the first day was very strange. It was like an apocalyptic vibe all over the Lower East Side.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was.
Well, when I came down here, Danielle and I drove down here, it was just like, it wasn't even like the same neighborhood, really.
No.
It was kind of like a war zone. They had all the streets and the army vehicles and cops. And there was some crazy crackhead directing traffic down below here.
That sounds right. Yeah. Yep. That's exactly. There were a lot of crackheads directing traffic that night.
Was Sion
that week
working the day that the
day it actually happened? Yes.
So when did he get home?
He got home later in the afternoon towards dinner time. And then trying to think of what we did for dinner. I don't know. I was like shopping for food. I went out to shop for food because I didn't want to have an empty kitchen. But I didn't shop for necessarily the correct pantry items because it was such mayhem in the supermarket at Associated on 14th Street and 1st Avenue. It was like a mass of students and elderly people and parents with kids and craziness, and everybody was like, the shelves that normally have like tons of canned goods were wiped out. And so all like, the canned goods and like the non-perishable shelf worthy items were like wiped out.
I was lucky that I had bought 2 cases of water like a week before just because they were on sale.
Yeah, you were smart.
So I went over to AP. All the water, the bottled water
wiped
was gone.
out. Yeah, you saw a lot of that.
So I'm like, I got the water. So I went to the gas station because they have ice, because the ice was out at the grocery stores.
Yeah.
And I had quite a bit of canned food, but I bought a bunch of chips and garbage, because I wasn't remembering that I had a gas stove. So,
yeah.
And then when my friend Danielle came over, she's like, we can just light the stove when the power goes out. But I had plenty of water. I had plenty of stuff. I think it's because in the Midwest, when the blizzards come, we're like trained to prepare.
Yeah, it's good that you are trained to prepare. In D.C., where my brother doesn't live in D.C., but he and his wife are 20 minutes outside of D.C., and they're always at threat for being targeted for some kind of massive, I don't know what, and they have like, in their cellar, they actually have an emergency stash of like, food items and a generator and all kinds of things to sustain them in the event of like a national disaster. And I hadn't really given it so much thought. You get so set in your ways of like, oh, do I have enough bars on my cell phone?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's New York City, and it's like, oh, I can always get something to eat here. I can always get something to eat or drink. It's New York, man. I can get frozen yogurt and with chocolate chips and strawberries and bananas in the middle of the fucking night if I want it, you know?
Right.
You get so spoiled. And then this hit, and there's no street lights, and the drug addicts can't get their fix.
Oh, God.
And you're face to face with the devil and a 5-year-old on your other side. And it's like, dude, so that's exactly, and that, I've never really been that scared living down here, but then I started to get scared, and I started to like feel really weird because I had a dead cell phone. And I wasn't going to go battling every day through Times Square, just begging in Sephora for a cell phone charge. Can I help you? Can I help you? Trying to hide that I'm plugged in, getting myself a charge.
Yeah.
It's not their fault. They're just trying to make their sales. But I got tired of battling the crowds and the whole, what's the word I'm looking for? There was this level of anxiety that
like
permeated.
Hysteria.
Yeah. Except when you reach 34th Street, now below 34th Street, you found the hysteria. You even saw a few stray businesses charging people to charge their instruments.
God, can you believe that?
That to me was ludicrous. I couldn't believe it. And the morning after, when we were going around and looking at all the trees and the destroyed cars after Avenue C was a complete fucking river, we went to one coffee shop in the Gramercy Park area because it was like, I think I might need coffee to get through this. And, I couldn't boil water on the stove. I couldn't turn on the Nespresso machine that we have. So It's like, I just need some caffeine to like see straighter through this for now till we get to my mother's in Harlem's and we can charge up our instruments. And
Yeah.
so we found this one coffee shop, a mom and pop place on like, I think it was 3rd Avenue in like maybe 22nd Street. And they were serving up iced coffee in the dark and apologizing that they only had flavored coffee. And people were buying it up like, you know, like hamburgers at the end of Woodstock, like the hungry hippies with the $5 hamburgers at the end of Woodstock. Not that I was there, but I've heard all these stories about how starving the hippies were and how much money the people who were selling food at the end of the festival, they were making tons of money. And a lot of those houses up there were built up on that money they made off those poor, starving, filthy hippies.
Oh, God.
Anyway, it felt like the whole energy, it was like pandemonium, and there was a line around the block. And I thought, you know, this is really cool that it's a mom and pop shop and you can't find a Starbucks or anything anywhere open, and yet they're still hustling and providing people with their daily caffeine, with their daily dose of caffeine.
Yeah.
I just thought they have a very strong work ethic. And they were also smart. But anyway, then we went up to Harlem. We finally, we walked a good distance. And then, you know, Jesse couldn't walk that far because he's only 5. And then we went up to Harlem. And my mom's at her assisted living residence, the lot residence, is right overlooking 5th Avenue. And they weren't hit at all. They were not touched.
You know, everything, I've heard that 34th Street has for the, what's it called, security thing, they're under a different power grid.
Yeah.
So, like, no matter what, they're always going to have power. And that's why that was the cutoff, and everything north had power pretty much, and everything south got screwed.
Because I'm telling you, those Victoria's Secret shoppers, those, you know, Macy's was closed for a few days, though, because I think, you know, their staff couldn't get in to service the people because the staff lives outside of the city and the trains and all that kind of stuff. So there were service interruptions. I know on 5th Avenue, I was going to pay a bill at one of those department stores, and I couldn't, they were closed, and I called them up, and I was like, oh, I want to pay my bill, please don't charge me the fee. And everybody, you know, they couldn't get their workers in, so, but, but things were alive and well at Victoria's Secret.
So did your storage flood then?
Our storage unit did flood, but we were lucky enough to get our stuff out of there in time and get up in the elevator about 5 to 10 minutes before the power went out, and people were trapped in the elevator screaming for help. Like we heard children's voices. We heard a mother, you know, I'm assuming it was the mother. Maybe it was just, you know, older kids and the younger siblings. I don't know exactly.
How did they get them out of the elevator?
I don't even know, because we tried calling. I was like, I'm calling 911, but little did I know that there was no 911. There was no availability of 911. There was no availability. So you were just
dead up here.
And the storm was raging so badly that we were afraid to go outside. We went out like when it just started a little bit, just because, you know, we had to see this once in a lifetime craziness on Avenue C, the river of Avenue C, and all the cars floating, and the water was up to their windows. It was crazy. You couldn't believe it. I didn't see the transformer blow on the Con Ed plant. I only know that it wasn't built to handle 14 and a half feet of water. It was only built to handle like 12 something feet of water. So, but things were removed from the sea. Big wooden beams that came from I don't know freaking where, like huge trees were just uprooted. And Peter Cooper Village on 20th Street, I don't know if they've restored all the power there even as of today, because they had some massive damage.
It's been 3 weeks.
Yeah, and on 18th Street and Avenue C, they have like a management office for the Peter Cooper Village, Stuyvesant Town area. I know they got flooded out, all the paperwork and files and everything.
Oh, God.
So they had to set up around the Oval, where they have all these oval amenities, like the film studio building where they usually would show films, turned into like an office and kind of a help area, assistance area for the residents to, go in for emergency. And then the National Guard knocked on our door after about, I don't know, it had been like almost a week without any power and doing the candles, the flashlights, freezing our butts off. And I just kind of like couldn't fight that day. And Jesse and I, he wanted to do homeschool because there was no school, obviously. And I was just like so not energetic enough to be a teacher that day. I was like, I could sit in a class right now if somebody else would teach, but for me to drag it out of me to do the teaching, I don't know. So we set up teddy bears, and I just sort of like yesed him. He actually did the teaching that day. And then,
Oh, goodness.
but the National Guard came knocking on our door, and I was so depressed at that point. I thought, I can't even make a cup of tea. I'm just like, what do I do? You know, there's brown water coming out of the pipes. And they said, excuse me, miss, do you need water? Do you need food? The National Guard just dropped off supplies, blah, blah, blah. And they were knocking on all the apartment doors. And I accepted their offer, and they brought us some emergency, like, supplies. And,
Oh, wow.
and then I sat at the table, right by the little candle.
Yeah.
And I just cried. And I thought we should all be part of the National Guard, because you never really know how bad it can get until you're in something like this. And we didn't even have the worst of it. We didn't have the roof blown off our house. We didn't have anybody in our family who got killed or washed away out of our arms. These poor people, how crazy that can be. How do you ever recover fully from something like that? And then these poor people who are like, they have no home to go back to, and they have to rely on these shelters. And who's going to fund these shelters? You have to appeal to the masses to give more of what, you know, more of what they have, and not even be sure that it's going to be forthcoming. You know, you're on a wing and a scare. Totally.
Yeah.
How horrible is that? You know, it's like credit. What credit? We have nowhere to, you know, to go. No one to appeal to. So, yeah, you know, certain things don't fall from the sky, and I think I would hope through all this, and I did see it in a lot of people, that people are reprioritizing and starting to believe that the world has to change from the inside out, that it can't just be like buy more, get more, earn more. You've got to do more, and you've got to believe more. And that's going to add a twist, you know, to the way people have been living their lives, because people are gimme what you got, grab, you know, and they're reaching for more than they can actually hold on to. And I think sometimes, you know, when you have a disaster like this, it's indicative of some sort of spiritual transformation of society at large.
Right.
That's what I like to believe anyway. And that it's either going to bring out the best in us, or, you know, God forbid, the worst in us.
Right.
But I did meet a lot of really, like, through this, I was scared at times walking home late at night with Jesse and stuff like that. But I met so many, you know, really good people. You're always going to meet the people who try to exploit, and then the people who go the extra distance. And I think that because of the goodness in others who do go the extra distance, that will sustain us through the hard times.
Sure.
And get us over all those hurdles of, you know, human nature that, you know, has soured, has become embittered, or just doesn't have it in them to give. You know,
there's a lot of different benefits and stuff now, like with you guys' concert the other night, and the one coming up, and the one I was at last night.
There's a lot of really great artists coming together to do the right thing.
And a lot of them are impacted. Like last night, there were people, they had a video set up where they showed the devastation, and there was all pictures taken by the people that were there. And some of them lost their homes and stuff, and they were there last night still, you know, performing and trying to, you know, be a part of the benefit.
On the Jersey Shore in Asbury Park.
Yeah. The night that it happened, you know, Danielle had come over earlier in the evening, and in my car, I parked it between the two brick buildings, and then she parked her truck there.
Yeah. Because
there's no trees that are going to come down. And it's a good thing, because trees came down. We couldn't even get out of the parking lot the next morning. But it was like 6 o'clock, it was calm, and by 6:30 it was windy, and then it just, like, all hell broke loose.
Yeah,
is that the way it happened here?
Yeah. It was very calm. I mean, because, as I said earlier in the evening, I was over right at Otto's Drunken Head on 14th and B, and people were joking about it. You know, yeah, be careful. Oh, I'll buy eggs tomorrow. Oh, you know, just kind of casting jokes around. And I took the dogs out, but then all of a sudden, 8:30 p.m., total transformation. And I thought our living room window was just going to, like, bust in. I really did. I really was nervous. It wasn't like Hurricane Irene. Hurricane Irene was like, you know, Yeah, it was way more mild. I mean, I came back from Virginia before Hurricane Irene when there was like that earthquake in DC and in the Virginia area. I was at my brother's house in Virginia in Alexandria, and we felt that earthquake while we were in his little home office, and got into the door jam and then headed out. But then I came back to New York, and actually I had a gig that night that Hurricane Irene was scheduled to blow through here, and the gig got canceled because everybody was really scared. But it wound up not being, it was, things were in disarray. When I walked by the FDR Drive by the East River, there was debris. There was a lot of debris, but nothing like this.
Right. Well,
this was way more damaging, way more forceful. And if it had been like 2 levels up or even 1 more level up, I think it probably would, it's just frightening to think of what could happen.
Oh my God. Just with the way it was, it came up, blocks.
Yeah.
And because there were people that were slogging out their cars the day that we came that were all the way up past autos. Yeah. And there was a lot of them now that, well, not now, but within a few days after, I noticed that they had like paint like Geico Total Loss spray painted on the sides of all these cars.
Wow.
Because they've been flooded.
Wow.
And
because it's salt water and everything gets corroded. It goes. Yeah, it's pretty freaking frightening. And I was worried about that we have a lot of elderly living here, but they can't take the cold as easily as someone who's younger.
Right.
They really can't, and they can't just walk those numbers. If they're on the 12th floor, all those stairs, and Gizzy's, where we were doing some gigs actually. There's a hurricane benefit on December 13th at Gizzy's, I think, by the way. But the restaurant owner of Gizzy's at 16 West 8th Street, he was feeding the elderly in Brighton Beach because they're in these high rises and they couldn't get. They were literally removing them in body bags.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, my friend Jeremiah, the elderly man that we were going to go upstate, and had we gone upstate, we would have missed the whole thing. We would have. I mean, it would have been a storm.
I was going to go upstate with you that weekend, remember?
You were, yes.
Because
we were going to go.
It was your birthday weekend.
Yes.
Yeah, happy freaking birthday. Here's your hurricane.
And Jeremiah's like, oh, we won't be able to get back in the city. Well, little we know, we didn't want to get back in the city.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there was nothing to come back to. He was stuck on the 20th floor of his building. He lives 2 blocks up the street from you.
Really?
With no way, because there's no way he can manage 5 stairs, much less 20 flights.
20 flights. Oh,
and
my God.
He didn't really prepare because he was planning on going on the thing.
Oh, wow.
And then he's like, oh, it'll be like Irene. I might lose power for a night. And so he had very little water, hardly any food. And there were people that came around and gave him water. But, he had no way to bathe, nothing. For, I think it was 2 weeks he was without. And we didn't hear from him. Finally, people are freaking. And I'm talking to some lady, please go up, and another person. Yeah. So there was some lady that did actually traverse the 20 floors and get to his apartment and find out that he was still around, and kicking. And he finally he called me the day he got power, and he's like, I got power back. He left a message, and then I talked to him a few days later, and I'm like, God, I wish we would have gone. He's like, oh, yeah, we should have, but who knew?
Holy cannoli.